Welcome to Shockwaves episode 90. I'm one of your hosts, Rob Galluzzo, sitting here with Elric Kane.
Oh, boy. I feel like I've got a lot to talk about this week. I'm kind of excited.
Really?
A lot of stuff, yeah.
All right.
I don't know what happened.
I'm excited.
I think I'm bouncing back after a quiet week, yeah.
I mean, it's not like you had a lot to talk about on your 3-hour retrospective of Carpenter's career.
I actually, that's the first
time. You
time
didn't run out of steam.
I'll be honest.
Amazing, by the way.
First time I felt guilty about having, because I never feel guilty about having the other show. That time, I got to admit, it took about 3 weeks of me watching a lot of stuff for that, where I wasn't doing my due diligence here. So I apologize, but it was for Carpenter. So I think
love
it's
it because it's only part one of part two.
Part one is 3 hours.
And I have literally been listening to it every day on my way to and from work.
You get through one movie.
Show left.
It's like an audiobook.
I will say my favorite thing about it.
It was a challenge, and now this.
The good thing about it is the thing we've had the most reaction to is people saying that they rewatched or are rewatching Christine because of it. And I'm like, that is fucking rad. Because I did that, and I kind of fell in love and got so excited with it. And so it's cool.
Yeah,
all right, you're not the only one that hosts this.
I know.
We also have Ryan Turek here.
Yeah, I'm only sitting next to Elric Kane. Hi, everybody.
Hello, and Rebekah McKendry.
We're all wearing black T-shirts today. It's weirding me out, guys.
What's different?
Go
about
figure.
That?
All black.
I don't usually wear black.
And Becca's still alive. This is good.
Yes.
Thanks, guys.
We had another scare.
Yeah. I spent another
But we're
weekend
good
in the
now.
hospital. But I read graphic novels this time. And I'm calling them that because I buy them in graphic novel form, not comic book form.
Wow.
So thank you, guys.
And you discovered that peppercorns are not actually
Yeah, red peppercorns are actually cashews. The more you fucking know, it keeps you alive, apparently.
I mean, is that just like 99-cent store peppercorns?
No,
or
this
is that
was
Whole
this
Foods
was like
peppercorns.
no, this
or
was like
what's
the fancy Penzies, which is like a spice
Yeah.
company. This was the Penzies Pepper Mill like blended corns, and so you get the black ones, and the white ones,
What
and
the
then
fuck,
the red
peppercorns?
ones. I know, and it did not even have like a nut warning on there.
I
But
did not know that.
Red peppercorns are not actually peppercorns.
Wow.
They are cashews.
Was your-
Nothing to do with horror.
Was your reaction as bad as if you had just eaten a nut? Or
Yes.
is it okay?
Yeah.
Yes, both times.
Well, that's
like
this is real life horror. That's
Yeah, this
Yeah.
is the real thing.
The first time it got really fucking bad because I didn't know what was going on. When it happened the second time, I was able to say it's happening again, and the only thing that was common from both meals was the pepper.
That's good.
And
you
then-
you deducted, you deduced.
So
Nicely
I
done.
got epied twice in 2 weeks, and I'm all hyped up on prednisone now. So let's do this shit, boys.
All right.
Wow.
Well, that's an intro. We are ready to roll.
Yeah, so I had a fun little topic I wanted to riff on before we got into it. So I was catching up with our good friend Spooky Dan Walker.
Yes.
And I jumped in the car with him, and we were just talking about whatever. And he was listening to our show, okay? But here's the thing. Now, if you know Spooky personally, and forgive me, Spooky, for divulging this, but Spooky lives solely on Red Bull and cloves.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he consumes food, but these are the two things that
I've
fuel
seen him eat pancakes.
Okay, so he eats food occasionally,
Yeah.
but it's mostly Red Bull. He also has, forgive me again, not the greatest attention span. And so
he'll admit that.
He
He'll admit
listens to our podcast at 2 times the speed
Yes,
that it's supposed to be. Now, I've listened to an audiobook at half a speed faster. After that, I can't understand anything. But he was listening at 2 times the speed to our show, which I found so bizarre. And he's like, it's not so bad. I just can't understand Elric. He's too fast for too fast. And so I
You can
started
never go
laughing.
fast enough.
And then I was like, okay, wait a minute. So you listen to all your podcasts this way? And he's like, actually, funny story. I listen to the movie Crypt at 2 times the speed. And I'm so used to it that the last time I saw Adam Green, he was talking too slow to be in person. And I started laughing out loud.
That's
He's like,
good.
it literally felt like he was talking in slow. Because he has now conditioned his brain that we all talk at this speed.
Well, how about for him, I just start talking like this.
I'm
So
more
Oh,
when
concerned.
and then I pulled out because Ryan did a video maybe a year ago, which I may reshare for this episode, where you listened to our show at half speed slower.
And it
Yeah.
was trippy.
And it sounded like we were drunk.
Yeah, and
Yes.
Becca's like, no way.
And it was
Java
wonderful.
Bekah.
Yeah.
Really hilarious. So
Java
I guess
Bekah.
my question to our audience out there is, if you listen to a lot of podcasts especially, do you listen do you try to squeeze in more podcasts by listening it faster? It is an option, though. That's the thing. You can go at half the speed, 1 speed, 2 times faster.
What was that?
How many podcasts?
I would never do this. But what made me laugh was the fact that like he couldn't talk to Adam Green in real life.
So do we always sound like chipmunks in Dan's head? Like,
yes.
Do we just always sound like that now?
Elric is a blur because Elric already talks fast as it is.
Yeah. It's just
a
series.
They need a function where you can choose who you slow down and who you speed up.
But I laughed at all this. He's like, it's not so bad if you concentrate. And I'm like, but I don't want to concentrate in the car on what Elric's trying to say.
That's weird.
I just thought it was hilarious, and I'm curious. I mean, you don't do
how
this.
many? No, I don't do this. How many people? How many podcasts do you have to listen to go? You know what? My time management sucks. I need to amplify and speed things up.
There are podcasts.
No,
there are podcasts that I've listened to that I felt moved too slow, and I knew that it was for like tension or pacing. Like specifically, some of the episodes of Lore, I was like, just get on with it. But never once did I say,
but that's
I'm
like
just
a
going to
produced
speed
show.
it up. Yeah.
So you'd lose sound effects and shit would get distorted.
Yeah.
So that's
so
even
like
worse.
I would never have sped it up. But yeah, that's one where I'm just like, let's move it along now. But
well, I've got to say, to be really quick, take that, Speedy.
Well,
that's like at the end of those car commercials on
the
radio.
Micro Machines too.
We can now call him Speedy Dan.
No, ARP in California.
Speedy Dan. As the new nickname is born, Speedy Dan.
Yeah, as far as I've gone as audiobooks, I'll listen to slightly fast, one half a bit faster.
Like Game of Thrones or so. That would make sense, I guess, to an
And
extent.
I believe Speedy Dan will be joining us in Texas, right? At least his filmware.
Oh, is he
yes,
here? Okay.
yes, for sure.
That's an interesting. What's interesting, none of us do. I'm just curious why the function was created in the first place. Was it for people to get through things faster, or?
Well, yeah. I mean, look. I'll be honest. When I downloaded the audiobook of it with Steve Weber, it tells you your app tells you this is a 42-hour listen, or at half speed, half speed faster, 36 hours, and I'm like, ooh. That's a whole, several hours I could save. And so I was like, all right. And I listened to a few variations to make sure I didn't lose anything in terms of, being able to actually listen to it. But I don't know. It made me laugh, the whole real life thing. I think he said he heard a theme song from one of his podcasts in a bar and didn't recognize it. And that made me laugh, too. He was like, oh, wait, I know this song.
I feel like this is like a Black Mirror episode with Spooky where his whole brain is changing and he's not used to humans anymore.
He's evolved. What if Spooky Dan is the next evolution of the human race?
He's video drummed himself.
That was the short that used to play on HBO called Slow Mo, and it was about a group of humans who moved at slow motion.
Oh, really?
I remember that back on HBO in the 90s. So Spooky Dan's the exact opposite of that.
But is he the only one? Call out to the audience. Do you listen to your podcasts at normal speed or sped up?
I feel
because you're conditioning your brain to think that we're...
That's very weird.
Don't you think back in the Killer POV days, I think we got one message of a guy saying he listened to it and speed.
Yeah, I think it was Spooky Dan.
No, I think it was somebody, and I think they mentioned me being like that. They wanted to listen to me at a slower speed.
You're just a series of punctuated syllables.
I learned to talk from Scorsese.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're like the New Zealand Scorsese.
He's my speech teacher.
All right, well, now that's out of the way. All right, what have we seen?
Hey guys, I finally watched Cold Fear.
Yes.
Cold
Hell.
Yeah, Cold Hell. Let you guys catch up first.
And by the way, I watched it as well because I had not seen it, but you guys really sold it hard.
Ooh,
yes.
Will it be approved?
Thank you. Cold Hell.
Hey, Ryan, let's listen.
I know.
Will it be approved?
I loved it. I swear that had this movie, the same visuals, been in an American movie that was not hard, this would have been like Academy Award grade cinematography. Like that's what I was by far most impressed with. It was just beautiful. There was few scenes in it where I wasn't just like, oh my God, the lighting. The plot kept me throughout the whole thing incredibly tense. And the actual murder, which Ryan described last week, where it shifts so that you realize that she's being watched, was one of the best scenes I've seen this year. It was really well done, yeah.
Yeah, no, this is Shockwaves approved.
Whoa!
But
Second of the year?
Here's the thing. Yes. I think and ironically, all foreign films that we're loving, which the average horror fan is like, I don't like subtitles.
Wait, did everyone see The Ritual? Have we touched on that yet or not?
I think we were a bit mixed on that one.
Oh,
I loved it.
I liked it.
Wait, do we all like The Ritual?
I think we all liked it.
I liked it, yeah.
Oh.
Liked it, but does liked mean...
No, I don't think like is approved.
Shockwave approved is passionate
that's too
about.
Middling. Well, we'll hold off on that.
No, but I honestly think... I got
limp
the
handshake. It gets the Shockwave's limp handshake.
Wow.
Someone's going to make a graphic for that now.
I got the sense that both you and Ryan really liked this movie, but I mean, I loved it. Like, it is actually my favorite thing I've seen this year.
Oh, wow.
It hit all of my boxes. And I guess, I mean, again, I like those Korean revenge movies.
That was my as soon as I saw it,
like.
I was like, this is going to be Rob's. This is literally a South Korean revenge film.
It is.
It is.
So similar.
And so, and I mean, the action set pieces, what I really loved, because I think some people obviously on our group had started talking about it after you guys mentioned last week. And I was surprised by how mixed it was in the group, because people were like, I don't know, like, oh, plot lines meandered or this and that. I thought every character had an incredible backstory and arc. Everything like added up and had a punchline to it in some capacity. And I love that we had that. And that actress is so mesmerizing and incredible. And like, the train sequence is my favorite sequence in the whole movie. Like, I jumped up out of my couch. I cheered several times, but that was the one that really got me. Sierra, I think, had messaged me saying the same thing. She's like, yep, I was jumping off the couch for that same scene.
Mine was the taxi scene.
Which was also a great
That
sequence.
was one where I was like cheering and yelling at it. I wish I understand more. I loved the idea of nationalism in the movie and how it was this constant like, oh, you're from Paris. Oh, you're Yugoslavian. No, that's a Bosnian restaurant. Oh no, he's killing Muslims. Like, there was this crazy concept
almost like everyone's
of everyone questioning everyone else's nationality, and some they trust and some they don't. And it depends on who you are. You need to get your daughter into a German kindergarten. And I wanted to understand it more because I was so kind of intertwined and wanted to understand that culture more. So I really liked that angle because it just kind of upped the anxiety of it, because it was this very much like you don't know who you can trust or who they are or whether or not they dislike you from the get-go.
You're such an intellectual. I liked it when she kicked the guy in the balls. I mean, that's all I could see.
Or when a car blew up.
Things got stabbed.
But I agree with Rob about one thing when you said, like, we liked it, because I really liked the movie, but I loved her.
Yeah.
And it's like her character and what she's trying to do is she reminds me of like the best thing of a Crank movie, but without the style of the movie, just that kind of drive of it. She has that in a better movie, which is cool.
And I think to back up the not love, it's just, I think there's just some narrative stuff. I think it loses its propulsion about somewhere in the second act because, she's just trying to find a place to go.
That's when it gets into I called it the all men are skeezy segment.
Yeah.
For about 15 minutes
Well, she's like bouncing from family. She's trying to find a place to stay. She's got her, she's got her niece, and she's just going from one place to the other.
Her home life's pretty disturbing.
Yeah.
It's kind of sad.
Well, I got to say, this detective, by the way, I called him German David Lynch. I loved him. I thought he was amazing.
Exactly
I was like, I like this German David Lynch guy.
Yeah.
He's pretty great.
He was interesting.
So I loved it. I loved it. And this is a Shudder exclusive, right?
Yeah.
So that's the only place you could see it, at least here in the U.S.
Yeah. Shockwaves approved. Cold Hell.
Another thing I was in love with this week that I know Bekah also saw. I think the second season of Santa Clarita Diet is
amazing,
terrific. Like, puts the first season to shame.
It blows the first season out of the water. And
I really enjoy the first.
The first season is great.
I mean, it's fun.
I like the first one too, but like they really got their groove. They've got it's almost Evil Deadish in the absurdity of how gory it gets.
Oh my God, it's
and
amazing.
then the humor. And I don't want to spoil too much, but basically, because I'm not even done. I've been savoring it. So I'm
on episode 6.
I'm about at 6 too.
Yeah, it goes fucking off the rails. But there was one scene I actually snorted tea out my nose, which
Let's see if it's the same one.
It was the scene. Okay, so the living room's trashed.
Not too much,
People walk into the living room. It's completely trashed, and the boy's just sitting there, and he goes, "She broke up with me, and I'm angry." And he just pushes the lamp off the table. I lost my shit then.
Yeah, I was like, okay.
Fucking spoiler. Now we know a lamp falls off.
A lamp falls.
We're so sorry about that. I'm out. And then I mean, it's just they've expanded the mythology, which is total surprise because I'm like, oh, okay, now this is kind of interesting that there's a reason behind everything.
It felt like in the first season there wasn't. They were just making it up as they went.
Oh, okay.
Probably.
That's how it feels.
And I will say, it gets kind of without revealing anything, it gets a little creaturey, which is designed by Clint Carney. Yes, which was
good
amazing.
Friend and artist of ours. But yeah, the one thing I wanted to reveal that I just thought just to give you a hint of the type of comedy it is at one point they end up encountering a character that's not a very nice guy, and they realize they're admiring his shelves.
Oh God, the shelf scene was amazing.
Like, oh, we should get the shelf, and then they realize, that's all Nazi memorabilia.
But at this point, they've been mesmerized by the
Yes,
shelf
so
for
they
like
don't
a
realize-
good minute.
And so then there's this giant debate between Timothy Fallon and Drew Barrymore because she's like, remember when we said if we had to kill somebody, who's the worst person we could possibly kill? Nazis. We got one right here. And he's like, but I don't know about right now this second. And it's like, no, this is a Nazi. I should eat and kill him. That's what we should do.
Nice.
And so the type of humor is just, it's really, like the first season was good and I enjoyed it and I loved it. But I don't know if it's the same writing staff or whatever, but they fucking like hit it out of the park. The tone, the
I
humor,
want to watch-
everything's about it great.
Maybe
I already
finished
watched
season 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, where were you on it when you stopped?
4 episodes.
When
you
you hit
gotta finish
Timothy
it.
Oliphant issues?
Timothy Oliphant is amazing in the second season
Yeah.
because he gets crazier. He gets I don't want to call him zany because that's going to put Ryan off.
Oh,
But
love zany elephant.
he gets really like
zany.
he loses it because he starts it. I won't say.
Ryan's
where
the
he
only
starts
one
it
who
'cause
prefers
somebody's gonna
Jack
yell,
Nicholson Scream to Oliphant. You're like, I like him more serious.
Honestly, I do.
Which they actually this
I
week
can't say
on he was on the Joel McHale show on Netflix now, and he and Drew Barrymore came on to do a promo for the Santa Clarita Diet, and they actually made jokes about how she was in Scream 1 and he was in Scream 2.
I hadn't even thought about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually pretty
That's
cool.
awesome.
Let's not leave TV then.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
I know from seeing a tweet by the Turek that he watched The Terror from
Yep.
AMC, and I
Yep.
also watched the first 2 episodes of The Terror.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Let's
do
talk about it.
Yeah, what is this? Because I've heard it, but I don't know what it is.
I know nothing
All right,
about
so
it.
first off, Elric, do you have any history with the book?
I know.
Did you
I haven't
read it?
read that, but I know other Dan Simmons
Okay,
stuff.
so
So I was
I-
excited when I saw his name. I didn't realize
Yeah,
initially they didn't advertise that.
No.
It wasn't until I was watching the credits that I realized.
I read about an eighth of the book.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, I read a
recently or a
lot
long
of-
time. He's
no,
got big books.
When
They're
it
big
first
books.
when it first came out, my dad recommended it to me. He absolutely loved the
Yeah.
book. And I got about an eighth of the way in, and I just realized it was just too much because Simmons really laid the detail on thick. It's very historical, and I felt like I was doing homework.
What's
Yeah.
it about?
It's about the Royal Navy fleet that's cutting through the Arctic Northwestern Passage. They're finding one way to the other. They're basically explorers.
I can't remember where they're trying to get to though.
They're just
They're trying to get to probably to claim
They're-
a certain
yeah,
land.
yeah.
But 2 of these ships,
It's
they're-
the Erebus and the Terror.
And the Terror is
it's
the
led
one in
by
the
the
front.
Terror. Yeah.
yeah, so and that's Jared Harris leading that one, and the other one's the great actor
Kieran
from-
Hines.
Kieran Hines, who I love.
Yep.
And they basically both these ships get stuck in the ice, and it's because the
You have. I was going to say you have. Jared Harris is captain, who is more seasoned and more recognized, and he's not as headstrong as Kieran Hines, who is more fame-seeking as a captain. He's
right.
Yeah, the kid.
Part of it though is there's some sort of backstory that they have yet to reveal in the first 2 episodes, and I think it's going to explain some of the bad stuff that happened to because there's a backstory that they were stuck in an expedition in the past,
yes.
and you don't know exactly what happened, but I think it's going to be bad. I'm hoping like cannibalism or something.
Well, what's nice is you have the 2 captains who are both very friendly. They're best friends, but they're in terms of a work level, they're at odds with one another because you got Jared Harris going, no, we shouldn't wait. We gotta, or no, he was like, no, we should wait. We want to circle around. Yeah. And then you've got Kieran Hines, who's like, no, let's keep pushing through this ice. And he's like, no, dude, we keep pushing through this ice. The ice is going to solidify. Our ships are going to be locked in, and there is going to be a point in which the ice will shift our boats off course and possibly into land and crush our boats.
Yeah.
Like that's how strong the ice flow is.
And it's so cold that it's for an indeterminate time. That's the kind of the cool hook
Yeah.
of the show is these 2 boats are stuck, and one of them's like, well, we'll just wait out winter and wait for summer.
Yeah.
And then somebody's like, the ice is getting colder. Even summer here is actually still frozen. And we might be here forever.
Yeah.
And there's might be no way out.
And between
So
1
why
and
did
2,
they go there?
Because they're explorers.
They're explorers.
And there's a whole ship of people, so there's lots of big cast to possibly dispose of. The interesting thing about the show, and all the comparisons, the only thing that bothers me a little bit is the comparisons are a little too soon that are being thrown around like, oh, it's The Thing meets Master and Commander.
Yeah.
It's definitely Master and Commander.
Yeah.
Like, I felt that straight away. It's definitely more Master and Commander than The Thing in the first 2, but if it goes that direction, it's going to be the greatest thing ever.
It will.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
Like, the first 2 is very much set up. It's pretty slow going, but it's very, I'm totally drawn in.
Well, you're
I'm
engaged
excited.
because
I'm
all the
engaged.
guys are great. I mean, like the entire cast is fantastic, and
It's very detail driven.
Very detail driven. Like,
How many episodes will it be? Like
I don't know.
6 because
Ridley Scott's
Is it like a mini
EP on it.
series?
I know it's not a full. It's not like a normal Walking Dead type show. I know it's a limited
like
thing,
event series,
but it can't be like 4 or 5. I'd say 6 to 10.
Yeah,
but there is something like minor horror happens in the first 2, but it's kind of in the distance. There's a great underwater sequence that I found very eerie.
Yeah.
There's a lot of eerie moments, but if they go all the way, this could be really great. Like either way, I'm in for the ride to check it to see where it goes.
Yeah, I mean, like everything is lavishly produced. You know, from the food,
money.
the food, the food that they eat to the captain's quarters
Thank you,
to
Walking Dead.
you know, all of these things that work so well. Like, you know, I mean, like when they finally when they're pushing through the ice. I love that they disembark and they're actually physically cutting the ice for the ship, and they're laying dynamite down, to blow up the ice so the ship can keep going through. It's really cool. And then, like you said, there is a kind of like a monstrous element thing that occurs in the first 2 episodes to keep you going. But I think it's wonderful.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things I can't tell exactly where it's going to head right now after 2, but in a fun way, like, you know, in a way that's kind of still exciting. Yeah. But definitely, production values are high. So I think if you haven't, I would, you know, as soon as they're available, I would check it out.
Yeah. On the high production values, I won't say much about it because I want to watch a couple more episodes before I give it full coverage. But I watched the first episode of the Frankenstein show on Netflix. It's really cool. I want to keep watching it.
Oh, what's it called? Like Detective Frankenstein or something?
Something like that. I don't even remember.
Frankenstein
Chronicles.
Frankenstein?
No.
Or am I thinking something different?
I thought it was Frankenstein Chronicles.
Is it Sherlock Frankenstein?
Something like that. No, it's actually the first episode. It's pretty snazzy. So I'm going to keep going. But I'll let
Frankenstein.
You guys know.
You know, Frankenstein PI was the original incarnation for I Frankenstein. I'm serious.
Really?
When we were developing it really, really early on, I mean, like the whole hook of it was like the Frankenstein monster was like a private detective in the city of monsters.
Oh,
yeah, and the Gill Man was an informant.
One fine day, we're going to have to get the Hollywood story from you on that one.
Yes.
On I Frankenstein, man.
Well, instead, you're going to get my my lovely take on the Willies.
Whoa.
The 80s
right.
camping thingy?
90.
90s.
Okay.
1990 camping thing, yes.
I saw that during my,
It is,
I saw that during my Halloween anthology October.
Yeah, man, that is a weird movie. It's Brian Peck, who's the co-star of Return of the Living Dead, wrote and directed it, and he pulled in all these favors to make basically a 2-story anthology with a lot of throat clearing at the beginning, because you've got Sean Astin and these 2 kids sitting under a tent telling campfire stories, and you're like, oh, is this how it's going to go? It's just going to be like gross out 2-minute stories, and for like 10 minutes they're like, what's grosser than gross? Remember that lady that put a dog in her microwave? And then they're like, boo, boo, boo. And then you see a woman putting her dog in a microwave. She's like, oh, Poochie, I'm going to dry you off. And then the dog explodes. And you're like, okay, moving on. And then they finally get to the meat of their story, which is the first one's like a monster in a high school. But the monster wears human skin every once in a while and disguises himself. And then the second one is like some very unpleasant asshole of a teenager who by day loves to annoy his friends and his parents, and then by night he goes down into the basement and collects flies and pulls wings off of flies and then glues them into these like very elaborate sets he's created, like a little diner or a hotel room. And when we get into the close-up, we see these flies, you know, wriggling and writhing around. And then you hear like the sound effects that he's imagining in his head of like, hey, can we just order a cup of Joe, please? And I'm like, what the fuck is
That
this?
is bizarre.
It is very weird. And the story dwells on this kid for a long time.
That short is a mere hour long.
Oh my God.
You're like, Jesus. Is it only? That's why I was like, it's only 2 stories.
It's only 2 stories.
Anthology?
It's a fucking 90-minute movie.
It's one
Weird.
short. It's like the Campfire Tales. It's one short.
Yeah.
And then you're in the next story, and you're just wondering where it's going to go. And then you're an hour in, and you're like, is this it?
This
for
is
the
it.
movie?
The
And it
movie.
is.
This is your story.
And then it ends, and
That
you're like,
is
that's
it.
the weirdest structural anthology I've ever seen in my life.
I know. And they end it with like a kind of they wrap it up, the wrap around with like a little like, oh, shucks, you rascals. You know, there's like some kind of macabre like little twist.
Yeah.
And I am convinced Sean Astin was not under that tent talking to those 2 kids through most of the shoot, because all of the coverage was straight on Sean Astin. Straight on the 2 kids. Straight on Sean Astin.
So he only had a day on
And I
set.
feel like only Sean Astin had like a day and a half, and all he did was just react to some PA off camera going, let me tell me your stories.
Got to get clean so he can like go off and do like a commercial or something.
I know, it was very weird. And also, I didn't recognize Sean Astin. He was in that kind of weird Goonie to
Lord of the Rings, like
Lord of the Rings age, but there's a lot of cameos. I mean, James Karen has a part in it. Who else?
Clue's in it too, right?
Clue's in it.
Yeah.
Dana Ashbrook from Twin Peaks.
Yeah.
There's just like a lot. Oh, and then there's the Kirk Cameron Growing Pains moment where the kid's looking at the TV and he's watching TV, and then he's watching Growing Pains, but all the characters in Growing Pains break character and look at the TV and go, "You're messed up."
Yeah.
And I was like,
so they had to get Growing Pains to do that.
Yeah.
Like they all agreed to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
them.
Alan Thicke is in Willies.
And that is probably why Willies is not out on. Is it out on DVD? Or
No, it's
Blu-ray?
just it's a
hard to
DVD.
It's out on DVD.
It's a pretty. I remember buying the DVD for like $6 or whatever. It's a fairly inexpensive DVD, but no Blu-ray or anything.
Yeah.
And even the DVD looks kind of questionable. I don't know why.
Off the VHS.
But yeah, there are a lot of interesting people in it,
Yeah.
including Kimmy Robertson too. So there's two Twin Peaks.
Yes,
There's like two of it. Like
yes.
it's like the Noah's Ark. They collected two people from every show or movie.
I
or pop culture
I
thing.
probably, that's probably Brian Peck. Brian Peck, probably knew all of these folks and just pulled in some favors.
Yeah.
So the Willies.
I can't not jump in with a good segue here because one of the films I watched happens to star Dana Ashbrook.
Hey.
So I couldn't let that one slide.
Yeah.
I watched, it looked like a HD version. I know this isn't on Blu-ray, but it was streaming of Return of the Living Dead 2.
Oh, wow.
And it looked great. It was on Amazon, and I have no idea why I pushed. I mean, it's one I hadn't seen in quite a while because it was always harder. Directed by the great Ken Wiederhorn, which evokes laughter. But our name, it does come derived from one of his movies.
Ken Wiederhorn.
For Shockwave's title. But this is one, I'll be perfectly honest, this is one I always remembered not really liking because I remember feeling like it was really clunky, and there's something about it I didn't like. This time, I gotta say, how I would describe this movie, part street trash, part Stranger Things, which is all good.
That's all I remember is like
it's
the
a lot of the kids running around on the bikes.
finding them in like storm tunnels.
And it's super gory, but in a comic street trash gory, not scary gory at all. It's not scary at all. It's got some ridiculous stuff in it. It's weird for Wiederhorn because all his best stuff it's kind of straight and serious. So him trying to do comedy feels a little forced, where that comes naturally to O'Bannon. But there are things in this that are just Dana Ashbrook's great in it, and I didn't really like him as a young actor. Even as Bobby always kind of annoyed me. In the new season, he's the best thing in the show.
Great in it,
like you can't wait for more Bobby. But in this one, there's a scene of zombies driving a Jeep, which is amazing, where they're chasing a kid and they're just enjoying the act of driving, which I love. There's a part where a girlfriend of one of the main characters, when she realizes probably she's not going to get away and her boyfriend's never coming back to her, where she literally just says okay and lets him eat her head. And it is just watching that like made me almost laugh out loud.
The first one, didn't it?
The way it's done is so bizarre.
No, it's part two. Because part two, they did the
No.
Evil Dead 2 thing where 2 is a remake of 1. So it's the same actors.
Right. It's
doing
James
the-
Karen.
Quite a few of them, yeah.
James Karen and Tom Matthews.
Okay,
playing
see,
Tom-
I didn't realize that as I was watching. I was really confused. I was like, why is he robbing a grave when he like is the guy who discovered this in the first movie? So that part definitely took me out for a minute.
Yeah.
But then I was like, okay, there's something. It's obviously disavowed the knowledge. But it's on. Check out Amazon because it looks to me like that has to be an HD master. I thought it looked great.
Yeah, it says rent HD for $2.99
Yeah.
or buy it for $9.99.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed it and had a good time rewatching it. The humor doesn't always land, but the effects really do. They're a lot. They're nowhere near as good as the first in terms of kind of like the real naturalism, but they're goopier and kind of goof, almost like more like through a perspective of a kid of what these things would
Well, I
be
remember
like.
the kid zombie. He
Oh,
was
yeah.
like
Yeah,
the bully.
because he
Yeah.
goes to find his mom at one
Yeah.
point. Yeah, I remember that part.
But
I
you know,
remember
I
the
had
Michael
fun.
Jackson joke.
Yeah.
Don't they? Because that's what I remember is they went overboard with the humor this time
Right.
as opposed to the first
Yeah.
one, which to me scared the shit out of me when I
Yeah.
first saw
Oh, the first
it.
one
Yeah.
is
I didn't get humor from
Yeah.
the first
No,
one. I didn't get when I saw
didn't
it.
see it as a comedy when I first saw it. I loved it, but it wasn't.
My ranking
comedic.
would still be 1, 3, 2, but because 3 is just a little more out there and
What
kind
about
of
4 and 5?
Rape from the grave and hey, they were shot in Chernobyl. Not enough of a song, but anyway, Dana Ashbrook's fun, so yeah, check it out.
Right.
I went to WonderCon.
Oh.
And yeah, so WonderCon.
Becca, anybody recognize you?
Yeah, I got 2.
Oh.
I got 2.
Cool.
And I wrote down their names because I wanted to say thank you so much for coming up and saying hi to me, Gabriel and Beth.
Wow.
So 2 people. And then I saw like the Waxworks Records was there and a couple of like our normal friends.
Make sure that we
there,
pay
so.
Gabriel and Beth because I was supposed to send them a check.
You sent them in? You sent them to like, go find Bekah. No, there was 2 people came up and were like, "You're Bekah from Shockwaves." And I was like, "I am." And then I'm always more excited than they are because someone has recognized me. So whereas they're like, "It's cool to meet you," I'm like, "It's so good to meet you."
Stop yelling at us and stop touching our face, Bekah.
It's a good point to remind people to rate us on iTunes. Say nice things. I never read those, but I read them today, and one of them said, "I met Elric at Texas Frightmare, and we walked down the hallway together. That was awesome." And I was like, "Whoa, all right, if that's all we have to do." I wish that's all I had to do in my relationships, like walk down a hallway with someone.
So, WonderCon. This is the sister con to San Diego Comic-Con, and I had never been to WonderCon before, but I got invited to be on a couple of panels this year, so I was really excited to go. I'm always kind of hesitant to go to these giant Comic-Cons. I know I've heard people call them Pikachu cons because they tend to be kind of more catered towards younger audiences. But I love them. I just had a blast this weekend walking around, and I had my family with me on Sunday, and just watching Marnie get so excited over every single thing there. Was just a blast. So, yeah, it was a good time. But while I was there, I'm one of the weird people who goes to Comic Cons to buy comics and graphic novels. So I picked up 2 that I was super excited about. I picked up a
This one I'm
bunch.
especially interested in.
But these are the 2 that I'm the most, that I read everything I got this week because I like binge read everything. But these are the 2 that I was most excited to talk about. So the first one is Queen Crab by Jimmy
Palmiotti. I remember
Palmiotti. He's the guy who wrote Painkiller Jane and Jonah Hex. And this is nutty. It's very short. I don't know if it was ever intended to go anywhere else. It is about a girl who is it's very much like this blue-collar kind of Brooklyn-y setting. And she is on a cruise with her husband. We kind of get this whole backstory of her and her friends and everything. And then she is on a cruise with her new fiancé. He throws her overboard, so he's trying to kill her. Something happens while she's underwater. She lives and crawls out into Coney Island with crab hands. And then
Joins the freak show?
Yeah.
Out there, or what?
Well, they try to convince her to. And she says no, and then it's just kind of like what she does from there.
Image Comics.
Yeah, through Image. And it is just wild. It never really gives much explanation. Like, you see this kind of abyss thing while she's underwater, and somehow that gives her the crab claws. But I want this to keep going because I was so intrigued by it. And it was just, it's
a
unlike,
cool image, like her with the arms.
Yeah,
it's pretty badass.
It's unlike anything I've read before. So I had a really good time with it, and the art was just awesome. The other one that I really enjoyed is Goners by Jacob Simon. I'm gonna say his name wrong. I always do.
From Dead Right Horror Trivia?
Yeah, from Dead Right Horror Trivia. He's also this year he wrote #1 with a Bullet, which I've been really enjoying. But Goners, he wrote I think a year or 2 ago. But this one I read in one sitting. Absolutely loved it. It is about a family called the Latimer family. And it is set in this world where paranormal entities and monsters exist. And this one family has developed this brand of fighting these paranormal monsters, so much so that there's a reality show about them fighting all these paranormal entities. And one night the kids are watching their parents on this reality show fighting these paranormal entities, and both the parents die very mysteriously on the show. So the kids are traumatized, and then they realize that something is now hunting them. And so now they have to, they're with the bodyguard, their family's bodyguard, so they have to stay protected. They have inherited the family's entire fortune and brand, and they have to try to figure out who killed their parents. And so it's just, there's a lot going on, but it's a really cool story.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Let's see. I'll jump into some Italian horror. I picked up the new Arrow U.S. release of Deep Red, Dario Argento's Deep Red.
Oh, shit. Which cut are you going to watch?
Well, I already watched it. I watched the Italian one, which is my not preferred one.
Yeah,
I guess it's referred to as his director's cut. I think the problem, and it's not a problem, really, it's that I tend to watch it with the English dub and subtitles, but because there's certain scenes that were cut out from the American version, it pretty regularly jumps back from Italian to English to Italian to English. So it's a little jarring if you're watching it with that soundtrack. I'm sure if I watched it all Italian, it would be different. But I also still think, and this is just my general preference for Argento as of late, I've always liked the shorter American cut anyway, which I think was called like The Hatchet Murders or some weird title like that. I haven't watched that yet, but they're both fully restored. And no, it's a great disc. They already put this out in the UK because Blue Underground had done a Blu-ray version of it here in America. And I ended up keeping both editions because there's slightly different features on them. And this one has a couple of new ones. I ordered it from Diabolic DVD because the first pressing on all these arrows are limited editions, and they never make it to Amazon, or they rarely do. And so I have peace of mind. I always order from Diabolic, and I always get the limited edition version. This one has, I think, the bonus disc with the American cut is kind of the bonus for it. And it comes with a booklet and a poster. I mean, they've been on a whole run of these Argento titles, including Cat o' Nine Tails was a great package, and then Bird with the Crystal Plumage. So
this is one of his big movies.
Yeah, so they do these stellar sets for him.
I want to hear about the SECT one.
Oh, and that was next.
Okay.
But that's by who? Scorpion? Or
Scorpion,
mixed with
Code Red. Yeah, here's the thing with the SECT, because I'd never seen this movie. This was, what's the guy's name?
Michel Sauvé.
Michel Sauvé.
I love this movie.
I'd never seen this one, and I was excited because I think in order to contractually obligated to get it out by a certain time. So that's why there's these single disc versions of Opera, the SECT, and the Church. And I only know I have a little inside knowledge because I've literally watched Jim Coons restore these things at his office when he's working on him. And the reason I skipped the single discs is because A, I knew that deluxe editions were coming, and B, I am a big subtitle guy only because I like to be able to. My hearing isn't what it used to be. I like to watch with subtitles, and I don't think these single discs have closed captions. I think they just kind of the bare minimum to get them out, maybe a feature or two. So finally, they announced the SECT as a 2-disc deluxe edition with a slipcase, exclusive only through Ronin Flicks, which is kind of the website that sells all the Code Red Scorpion stuff. Ordered it, super excited, put it on, and it looks great. And it's about a 2-hour movie. It's pretty long for an Italian horror movie. It looks great, but I only made it about an hour in.
Oh, no.
And
you
got
didn't get to
really
the cool gore effects.
Frustrated because there's a hiss that comes out of the back speakers. Now, from whatever little research I did online, and it's funny because the single disc, I would imagine it's just the same disc. From what I read up, the film is only a 2-channel stereo mix, but it's still, I don't know, it's the way it was encoded, I guess. What I mean is I'm trying to think of an analogy, but basically if you turn on an amp and walk away and you just hear that noise, just like that, it's not really a sound, it's just noise. That's coming out of the back speaker so loud, and the only dialogue is coming out of the center channel. And since the center channel is in front of me, I can't hear the dialogue as well because there's all this static noise behind me. And so I was so distracted by the sound. And I had the subtitles on, but the subtitles were actually in Italian translation, so they didn't match the dialogue at all. I just found it to be a very distracting experience, and so I ended up stopping an hour in because I was pissed off, and I was like, and also, look, I mean, sometimes you get a good deal on these things, but these are limited edition deluxes, so it's almost like $40. Right.
Yeah.
And so I was like, all right, I'm going to stop this for now. I'll get back to it again. I don't know if I have to manually turn off my 5.1 in order to watch this properly sound-wise.
Would Jim know if you asked him?
Yes.
Okay.
I would have bugged him, but I know
Isn't he in Europe?
He's in Europe with his fiance. I'm not going to bug him. I'm not going to text Jim. Well, he's
yeah,
in Paris.
No, you're in
Jim,
Italy,
man,
but
what's up with the sound, man?
I got a hiss, man.
I'll wait for him to get back to get the full
right,
scoop and
fair.
see what he says and report back to you.
Well, make sure you do watch it because it is cool and it goes.
It goes really cool places.
And I want to. And
you got to finish it.
I was hoping maybe it was just my disc, but I haven't really gotten a clear answer from people online that have picked it up. In terms of, other than hearing that, it's recorded in 2-channel stereo anyways. So that was kind of a bummer. But I hope that I can get back to the SECT at some point because I love Cemetery Man. So
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It goes to really neat places.
And stage fright.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The church, you haven't bought the church yet?
No, because the only one that's come out as a deluxe has been the SECT.
Okay.
The Church and Opera are just single disc versions, but they're both coming as deluxe editions, and they'll be exclusive from Ronin Flicks.
Okay. I always thought the Church was a little slow out of all of his.
Church.
Really?
Yeah.
Maybe I need to rewatch it.
Especially if you rewatch it again, thinking of it as like the third Demons, it really works as that.
Yeah.
Like it really
much.
has that back, and it kind of goes back in time to the.
It's just very nightmare. Well, the Knights, the
Knights
Templar Knights,
stuff.
Crusades.
But it does have some gory stuff. When I was young, I thought it was slow, and I didn't like it that much when I was young. But then when I started 2 years ago, same time as SECT, I liked it a lot.
See, I remember seeing SECT, Stage Fright and The Church, like all within the same month because I was on like a Sovavi kick.
Yeah.
And I found The Church to be the slowest of them. So I need to go back and revisit that one.
I mean, the SECT is pretty slow too, though. But I mean,
I don't know. It's got really good like effects moments and really good kind of what the fuckery moments that keep you going. So.
All right, some
What
new
else?
stuff. I got a few more. Insidious 4.
Yeah.
The last
I saw that.
key.
There's some stuff in here I like. In terms of creature stuff, I like a lot. This one's dark, and I think I had an interesting reaction because this is a franchise I love, and I won't feel bad at all because this movie did great, and I love this as a franchise, and I want more Insidious. But it's really dark and disturbing material, and there's a part of me that really missed part 2, bonkers movie making, like the crazy and zany comedy, like the zaniness of that film. I felt like was missing in this one, and I was like, oh, I want more holy fucking shit. And I think what it is, and it makes sense because this story goes back and really ties the whole series together, so it's integral to the story. Like I think fans of the series are gonna like this movie. It's not in question. It's more like, what do I want from my Insidious going forward? And I wish somebody in this room would listen. Here we go. No, I'll tell you what I want.
Give me a pencil.
He wants more
This is what I
Purge
want.
and Predator.
This is actually pretty simple. I want more Further. I want to go all the way into the Further and really push that and find out more. I feel like
You
this
did.
one,
You went so deep into the Further in this one, Elric.
I felt like this one had the least of the Further and was more like, it explained some interesting. The key monster creature stuff is awesome.
Key face, yeah.
That stuff's really fun, and it's interesting. It's also cool that you have like a 70-year-old woman, leading a franchise. That's pretty badass. So I don't know. There's just for me, there's something about. Also, maybe I think by going backwards for 2 movies in terms of story, sequentially, there's a part of me that now has got really like amping. Like, all right, the story's over now. I really want to see an Insidious that's set contemporary, and let's keep going
Further in the Further.
Let's go further into the Further. That's all I'm saying. I didn't come here to complain.
Sinister crossover.
Hashtag
baby.
I didn't show up to
further
Blumhouse
into
today.
the Further.
I just want somebody to listen. Let's go further with this and go back to a little more bonkers. Let's have a little more fun. I think this one, I get why, because also I think the director, obviously, he suits dark material like in line with Deborah Logan. But for me, there's something about that French. I think that suits Conjuring more. And I think one of the fun things about Insidious is that kind of zaniness that they kind of really established with 2, in my opinion. So anyway, so I enjoyed watching it, but I want to go crazier with it. That's all I'm saying.
All right. We'll give you more cross-dressing.
Hey, all right.
I'm surprised you haven't seen this film yet. Maybe you have.
If you know where you're going, take a look at that
talking
word
about
right there.
PYEWACKET?
Boom.
Bam. Wow.
excited.
Elric and I are in
I know.
And I've always just watched it when I then see you tweet about it. I'm like, oh, I just watched that.
Yeah, well, Rob and I did Santa Clarita in Cold House.
All right,
so,
all right,
yeah.
we'll take it.
Well, PYEWACKET is a film that came out from IOC Films. It just hit VOD. Backcountry writer-director Adam McDonald is back with a film that is, not man versus nature, but now mother versus daughter.
And some Mother Nature.
And some Mother Nature.
Quite a bit of Mother Nature in there, actually. Yeah.
But here he's tackling the kind of strenuous relationship between mothers and daughters, especially when grief is involved.
Yeah.
And here you have Nicole Munoz playing a teenage girl who finds her life completely upended when her mother, played by Laura Harris, who's obviously grieving over the death.
Wait, Lauren Hutton.
No.
Her mom?
No, Laurie Holden. Sorry, Laurie Holden.
Sorry, yeah. From Walking Dead.
Yeah, Walking Dead.
The Frank Darabont movies.
Yeah.
And Jump Cut Cafe.
Yeah, and Laurie Holden's character, her mom, basically is like, enough is enough. I can't live in the same house as where we were a happy family. We need to move. So she relocates her and her daughter to well outside of town, which means that her daughter is incredibly upset, and rightfully so, that she's leaving all her friends behind, all her her school chums behind. And in an act of rebellion, she decides to put a death curse on her mom.
Yeah,
using witchcraft. And
yeah, it's funny how when you put it as a plot, and I was thinking this as the set. There's plot points where I'm just like, what? That's
but the funny thing is you say that, and then immediately I'm sure listeners are like, well, what a bitch. How could you do something like that? But the funny thing is he makes it feel very natural because it's just a teenager lashing out.
It's
very
true. Teenage feelings are different. Quicker.
And I
also,
think I would have cursed my parents at some point during my teen years.
and you think as a viewer, you're like, that shit's not going to work.
Yeah.
But then creepy shit does start to work, and it does start to happen, but directly to the daughter. and he does a really good job with it.
Yeah,
you know?
basically, this is a movie where the setup, there's like a couple of the character beats that I didn't totally buy. I didn't totally buy them as mother and daughter, and I think part of it's just Laurie, the actress. Like, she's good, but her hair's also perfect every morning. When she wakes up, she's got the perfect curl.
Oh, yeah,
so there's little things like
crying,
that.
even,
Yeah, little things like that. But when the horror elements of this movie kick in, I love that.
Yeah.
It's really, and it's not that predictable. I think I kept waiting for certain predictable beats, and then it would do something a little off and a little strange, and there's some crazy reveal towards the end.
Not even just in the horror, but in the drama as well. You'd expect them to come in on a scene where you're like, oh, this is the big showdown. But it's already happened. Yeah. And you're kind of coming in the after effect of whatever big moment happened, and you're like kind of seeing these characters react to the dialogue. It's a movie that lives really on like a lot of the quiet moments of frustration and anxiety and grief and desperation. And it works. I think it worked really well. Really kept me in there.
No, on a filmmaking level, I enjoyed it a lot. It's one of those things that's a couple beats, just things short of being like a great movie.
Yes.
But and that's and it's no one's fault either. It's not like it's just sometimes the pieces together. But yeah, man, where it goes is really cool. And there's a couple creature beats. There's something on a wall that I found really effective. I won't spoil too much. Yeah. It's definitely an intriguing horror and ticks all those slow burn, creeper vibes.
I watched it really late at night. I was just kind of like hanging out in bed, just relaxing, and I had all the lights off. And that moment that you're talking about, it made me sit up, and I was like, "Oh, now we're getting somewhere really unsettling and filled with dread." And it was very impressive as like an indie supernatural thriller, and I definitely recommend it. Somebody on Twitter was like, "Well, it wasn't all that great." I was like, "Yeah, but you could still recognize that it's a good movie."
And I would say it might not be great, but I think there are great moments in it. And I always think if there's like 2 or 3 great moments in something, it's worth discussing. Yeah. I think it has that horror-wise. Yeah.
And I thought the daughter, Nicole,
she's really good.
She was really good.
Yeah, she's really good because she's really nice and believable. And some of the interactions with the teenagers at times was like, like there's a guy and girl, and they just never. It's like, come on, hook up. Come on, we're in the back of a car. Let's do this. But they kind of dance around each other almost too much for me to believe.
Not everybody has to hook up, Elric.
I just got straight to it, man.
I was going to keep sitting here reading Queen Crab.
Queen Crab. Now, Elric promised to do something this week, and he promised on Twitter.
Did it happen yet?
Did it happen?
So let me break it down. Let me set a scene. I'm at home,
Yes.
okay?
Yes.
I'm eating nuts and watching Fandor.
Like you do.
I'm on my Fandor, and I push the Fandor button.
Wait, did you say eating nuts?
Eating nuts.
Just to,
I'm eating nuts,
like
watching Fandor, hitting my
He's
EpiPen in my
thinking of
chest, in my heart, and half watching them. I'm doing ironing. I'm not even really.
You don't iron anything.
I'm full Bekah-ing at this point. I watched something called Inside Number 9.
Oh, you did?
Wow.
Started first season because the other two, I just wanted to start in first season, and that one was through Shudder. I had to decide where to jump in because what had happened like a long time ago, when you first talked about it, I had pushed play once on the first episode. In the first few minutes, it was all messed up. There's something wrong with my streaming, and I kind of was like, oh yeah. So I didn't want to jump back in there. I started with one, I think it was one of your recommendations, episode 2, A Quiet Night In.
Yep.
Sorry to disappoint you, Bekah. Genius. Like fucking these guys are fucking
what a setup.
And I'm not talking like it's okay. Yeah, it's pretty good. No.
It's brilliant, is
this
it not?
This first episode, this is the one to start on. Like, and actually there's a one I like even more, but this is the perfect one to start on because what I go and going, oh, is it going to be like Black Mirror? Is it going to be like what?
No.
This is like nothing.
It's better than all of them.
It's basically a 25-minute silent film, even though it has sound, where no one talks, as 2 guys try to break into a house to rob an art painting. And it's hilarious because these 2 guys are trying to... There's a gag with a dog that I like. I don't think I've laughed this loud in a very long time as they're trying to get rid of an annoying dog from a scenario.
I howled,
and it's actually freaking hilarious. So this was a great one. I watched that one and was like, oh my God, I love this. How am I going to ever live this down to Bekah? Knowing that I actually listened to her and she was right about something. It's disgusting. I'm going to send you peppercorn.
Which other ones did you watch? Because now you have to watch all of them.
Then I watched Tom and Jerry.
I love that one so much.
Which is really fun, and it's about basically a guy who comes home, notices the homeless guy across the street, and says to his girlfriend, don't go near that guy, I don't like that guy. And then one night, it's really cold out, the homeless guy knocks on the door and says, oh, could I, oh, you left your wallet, and here's your wallet. And it's like, oh, thanks. And he's trying to get rid of him, and he's like, oh, I guess you could come in for a quick drink. And then basically they start living together, and then he starts becoming the other guy.
So
weird. And it just goes on this, it goes somewhere where you're like, holy shit.
And did you see the ending coming? Because I was completely blown away.
It was great. Yeah. But then, so I watched those two, and then Dick Renner came over, and I said, you got to watch, because it's totally up his, even more than me, this will become his favorite show. Like, if you like comedy, horror, those elements, and I just happened to pick the perfect one, the last one of that season where they're in the haunted house thing.
Is that not amazing? It's called the Halloween.
The Harrowing. The other one that if you were going to start, this thing, it's because this one's firmly horror. It's basically total last house. Starts like House of the Devil. Mm-hmm. It's basically the babysitter comes. She's from high school,
but it's an elderly man.
Yeah,
and there's a bell. He has a bell that he'll ring.
There's somebody up there. Don't worry, he's elderly. He has a bell, but he'll never ring it. Don't worry, but he does have a bell. And if anything went horribly, but it won't happen. You know,
and
it's
so
like
you spend the first half of the episode just waiting for the bell to ring, and it's amazing.
She invites her friend, and the place is a total horror show. It's like all the most disturbing paintings on the wall that you've ever seen of hell, images of hell. And they're like, we're just going out. We only go out once, and they look like vampires almost. But the setup, you're like, oh, how could this get crazier? And then of course, her friend comes over, and then the bell goes, and they have to go upstairs, and it is fucking rad. It has an amazing ending that's actually creepy. Like it goes from being funny to genuinely creepy in the last beat. So this isn't a horror show per se, but this is a horror episode. Mm-hmm. I've watched those three, and I started watching one, and then I was on solo duty. So I was going to watch the whole first season before I came in, but I'm like, I still have a couple to watch. But it's the kind of show where I will definitely watch every episode. That's how good it is.
You need to.
Hats off to Ewan, is it Alan? And his abuse from
There's
inside
a lot
number 9
of people,
tweets.
yeah, but Alan's one of the main ones.
We appreciate it. But this is really something I think people have a lot of fun discovering the show. It's really cool. I don't know if we can watch the other seasons yet.
Yeah, actually 1 and 2 are on Hulu now, and you can buy 3 on Amazon. And I think it was
BritBox or something.
Through BritBox, I got 1, 2, and 3. And you definitely, and BritBox, it's like Shudder where you can get the free week or something like that. And even still, it's like $5 a month. So we had it for a long stretch because I binged all of Fawlty Towers and Are You Being Served, and League of Gentlemen and Psychoville are also on there. So it was worth it just to watch all of those.
And it's cool because it's 2 guys who write them all, just like Charlie Brooker did on Black Mirror, and they both act in most of them. There's a couple that they go a different direction.
And a lot of times they'll use the same actors over and over, so it's really kind of interesting.
But the episodes are nothing alike.
Nothing.
And I think that's what won me over. I was like, oh wow. And there's only 6 episodes, so obviously it's just super high production value in that British way. Only 6 episodes. Highest recommendation.
There are so many episodes that I'm so glad you're finally watching Elric, because there are so many episodes that I've been like, Elric would love this. There's literally an episode in the 3rd season called Diddle Diddle Dumpling, and it's about a man who's walking to work one day and he finds one shoe outside of his house and becomes obsessed with finding out what happened to the other shoe.
I've actually thought that before.
And that's literally the only, but it goes in the zaniest, it completely goes bonkers, but that's the only point of the episode, is to find out what happened to the other shoe.
Okay, cool.
And I've watched that one and said, Kane would be into this.
Yeah, no, it's really fun. I think Rob will definitely, some of the comedy bone in you, I think will dig it.
No, I'll jump into that too.
Thanks, guys. It only took 3 fucking years.
That is about my turnaround with your recommendation.
I will say this. And Bekah, I'll reserve all my thoughts for later on, but I started reading Hex.
Are you liking
the
it?
book? The book?
My God. My God. 3 years later. What is up? Literally, it's the second episode. No,
months.
It was seriously the second episode of Shockwaves that I was like, Ryan, you got to read Hex. Because it was right as we were starting up Blumhouse.com. Are you enjoying it?
I love it.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It's great. Yeah.
Fuck all of you guys.
I feel like that's how we do it with Bekah. And with Bekah, I think you take things we talked about Killer POV, and then you go, I just discovered this thing. And I'm like, I talked about that 3 years ago. I think that's just how we roll here.
Oh, my gosh.
Ryan, have you caught up with Ash vs. Evil Dead yet?
No.
Okay.
No.
It continues to be terrific.
Awesome.
I'm a little sad because we're at the halfway point now, and this could very well be it. I just am in awe of how many ways they find how many ways they put Ash in unpredictable predicaments that are wonderful. Let's just say that there's a baby child demon version of Ash now.
Oh my God.
And
right.
yes,
catch up. I'll catch up. I'll definitely catch up.
It was really funny this past week.
How far are they into it?
This is the 5th episode just aired, so we're at the halfway point.
Showtime this time, so
again, I do not Showtime, Stars.
Oh, Stars.
I just use the app via Amazon Prime.
Then you can subscribe and unsubscribe
for a couple bucks or whatever.
Yeah, it's $5 a month, and I'm catching up on American Gods as well because I never finished that.
I started rewatching Boris Karloff's Thriller. Anthology series. It's really solid. The first episode was Leslie Nielsen, who plays this kind of corporate executive who catches the eye of this woman that works in this building, and she basically is like, hey, so I'm in love with you, and I've been watching you every day since you've been working here, and I think you and I should definitely start a relationship. And he's like, I'm sorry, ma'am, but I'm married. Meanwhile, there's this kind of mailroom chump who is on the rise, or so he thinks, and he's also eyeing Leslie Nielsen as someone to kind of emulate. And soon enough, both this mailroom creepo and this creepy chick come together and really disrupt Leslie Nielsen's life.
That always happens to him in horror. Leslie's always on the downside of his relationships.
I know. But it's cool because it's like, like the show was made around, I think, like around the era that Mad Men is Mad Men was set in. So it's like, I was kind of imagining Leslie Nielsen in a Mad Men scenario.
Sterling
Cooper. Like, oh, yeah, he could totally fit in.
Yeah.
But it's a cool show. The ending of this very first episode was a little lackluster, but I remember there were some really good episodes in that whole box set.
Yeah. Did you pick up the box set, or is it?
I've had it. Yeah. I think it was Image that put it out like a couple of years or several years back, and I've just had it, and I haven't watched it in a long time.
There's probably a site that tells you which this is the 5 episodes you can't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To take that shortcut sometimes.
Yeah, but and then I just got the Outer Limits box set, which I can't
wait.
That's gonna get
cannot wait.
I remember Leslie Nielsen being, and I think it was just a pilot that never got done, but it was, I want to say 70s, and it was like a Lovecraftian thing, and he was playing a detective investigating Lovecraft crimes. Or it may have been a cult.
That was Fred Ward.
No, I'm telling you. It was the Leslie Nielsen one. I remember it. I think it was like a TV pilot that never went anywhere, but it was good.
That's cool.
So I got it. Someone out there in the ethos is now going to tell me exactly what it was.
He knew, like a midget at a urinal, he'd have to stay on his toes.
Naked Gun,
Naked Gun 33 and a third.
Best one-liners of the whole franchise.
Like a blind man at an orgy, I'd have to feel my way around.
Nice, Beaver.
I love those ones.
That is a great one. All righty, well...
Well, wait, no. I have a big one to end.
Oh, go.
This is my dedication to Rob G.
This is bigger than Inside Number 9?
Okay.
I spent $5.99 on IMITATION Girl.
Oh, really?
So I'm not going to...
You're ready to talk about it now?
Yes, because I was going to put it off.
I was going to save it for Texas Frightmare. Chattanooga.
No, because it just came out. We want to help him
Okay.
not wait 3 weeks. The reason I did it, actually, I wasn't going to watch it, but then I realized we wouldn't all be together for like 3 weeks because we're going away to...
Oh, that's true.
Next week we don't have a show. I think that this movie, you're right, this movie's definitely up my alley. Because it's not really a horror movie at all.
Nope.
Right? It's a art house indie sci-fi. That would pretty much tick it. Definitely American indie in that sense. I think it's really original, and I think it's I liked it a lot. Like, I found I was really interested in it. It was definitely kind of movie. It's kind of movie I probably would have talked about on Pure Cinema or something, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's a different, obviously for your slate, I'm glad you got it through because it won't be the obvious kind of movie for them to put out, and I think it will be a harder sell because of that. But in the same token, it's not like Under the Skin or any of those movies. Not really stylistically at all. It's a lot more minimal. It's also more about human connection, which I really like. She basically, you've already talked about the story, but the goo comes down from space and attaches itself to the cover of a Playmate.
Lauren Ashley Carter,
and then kind of forms itself into her, and it's really interesting. One of the best images is just her as she becomes this thing walking through the middle of the desert on a highway, but the guy she kind of ends up meeting who runs this motel, that stuff's the stuff I really found myself responding to because it was very warm in its approach. So that's why it's not really a horror film. All the characters are so warm to each other, and then even the porn star character is starting to doubt what she does and think about her life, getting existential about her life, is then suddenly seeing in mirrors this image of this woman who's coming, and it's slowly about the two characters coming together. So I'd say set people's expectations differently in terms of is this hard? No, if you're somebody who likes these kind of movies and more offbeat indies, but they have really original voices, and you can see through the budget, you can go, okay, I know where it's being pitched.
Yeah, and for a first film, I was really impressed. Yeah,
it got my attention. I was interested the whole way, and I was I didn't know where I was going to go, and I liked that quality to it. So
right. Of everybody here, I knew you would be the one.
Yeah. No, you weren't wrong.
I ideal for when I was watching it, I was like, this is going to be an Elric pick. And really, the thing about it is, I want it. Look, you have access to a brand that you're building from scratch. At least this movie label version, and I thought it would be a bold pick to really throw expectations aside. So far, the one thing I keep hearing is everyone's like, I watched it expecting dread to happen the whole time. Where's the horror element? I'm like, it's not. It's just a good movie. Yeah. And if I can use a cool horror label to get good movies out, then to
well,
me that
I think you guys can talk about it as sci-fi because genre, extended so, and it's clearly sci-fi. It's not horror at all, but it has sci-fi. Actually, I'd say the last beat kind of has an element of that, but it's really it is sci-fi, but it's the whole way it's sci-fi in that indie way where it's trying. I mean, similar in a sense Under the Skin, and not in terms of the way it feels at all because that's the Dread version, but about what the character is. Somebody trying to understand us. And trying to understand a place, and that side of it is good. Also, it's a good performance by her, especially actually playing the Thing. Like I think she's really interesting, and I don't know. I thought it was cool, man. And hats off. I enjoyed this one, and I as I've always sworn, I will always be honest with how I feel about these.
Beautiful. Well,
so,
that's Imitation Girl's available for rental now, so please follow Elric. We have no problem selling these Terrifier DVDs and Blu-rays. Everyone's into the.
It might take me longer to get to that one.
Yes, but we could show love to both.
Yeah, cool.
I appreciate that.